I've decided to keep a journal.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Pod Casty For Me, the podcast about film, culture, politics, and Paul Schrader, where we have watched every film written and or directed by American filmmaker Paul Schrader, minus one, and explore how they speak to their moment. And this one, the show's hosted by two guys, and one of the guys, my name is Jake Serwin.
I'm one of the guys. My name is Ian Ryan. I remember this getting me last year when we did this. You said the same thing last year, and it also kind of made me feel... I mean, I am confident at this point in my life that I will die before I do so many of the things that I'd like to do. However, it's weird to feel like you did do one thing completely, and now you can't do it again.
The sadness of the finishing of a book.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. When I was like 17, my sister and I drove across the country because we had to get her car from one end of it to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an abiding sadness at having crossed the continent.
Yeah. You saw it. That was it.
A small Alexander weep.
Yeah.
You know?
He had no more... What did you guys take? The 10 left to conquer? 40? 80?
What's the one that goes through like Nebraska? I think the 40 or the 70?
Goes through Colorado and stuff.
40. Yeah. Alexander Weep going to be on the show next week. Come on. Hey. Alexander Payne. That's some of the stuff he felt.
That's true. Yeah. Presumably.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
William Wellman.
Yep.
I am doing fine. I'm sleepy.
Wake up.
Ah. What's going on? I had a dream that I worked for 24 straight hours, and I feel like I woke up tired.
That is grim. Not just the fact that that's what your subconscious is producing for you.
And in the dream, I dreamt that we had done this episode, but we forgot to do something in it. So.
Oh, shit. Well, I got good news for you. Your dreams are coming true, baby. I can promise we will forget to do something.
True, baby. You know, it's like the true bugs. You know how there's like a list when you look at insects?
Oh, sure.
Some of them are listed as true bug.
Yeah,
and then
90% of lizards are not true lizards. All right, well,
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about bugs.
I know, but I guess I to these people, we've talked about this classification stuff before. Good that we're returning to it. This is one of the areas that I felt we left unexplored. I would say my definition of bugs is all the ones. The true bugs to me are all the bugs. So
are we getting into the two questions? And is it about if a spider is a bug kind of stuff? Or
no?
Okay, but if someone calls a spider a bug, you cannot say anything to them about that because that's annoying.
Unless you're in science class. Yeah, if
unless they're
like,
7 and you're in science
There's
class.
bugs in my house. I saw a spider yesterday, for example. I would say, oh, wow.
Well, it's probably true also because the spider ate the bug.
Good point.
It's the last episode of the show. You had an idea for what this should be called, but you forgot it. But I was wondering if you'd remembered it.
No. Why would I have? I mean, I threw out Epaulogue the last time we talked about it, and I had forgotten it already. But
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I was going to call it Final Schradement, but I think I wanted to call it a Schradement of Pulpus at the beginning, and I don't remember if I did that.
You did do that, so we can't do
I like to mix it up.
Yeah, let's do something different.
We got a Patreon. If you want more of this, you get an episode every other week. Go on over there to patreon.com/podcastingforme. $5 a month. You get Clint Eastwood ephemera, Paul Schrader ephemera. Increasingly, we're going to be covering, we're going to be doing some more of those unproduced Schrader scripts soon. All kinds of stuff.
Y'all love that. You guys are sickos, man.
I mean, yeah, they're listening to the show.
Yeah. But it's going to be good over there. You're right. It's good. We're turning up the Schrader dial. We're almost done with old Clinty, but we're going to milk it a little longer.
We're done with we're going to milk the Clint for as long as we can. I just recently discovered something that I think I knew about and then forgot, which is that's one of the pleasures of having this chicken wire brain that you and I have.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Which is, there are 12 Dirty Harry novels released between like August 1981 and March 1983. They all came out.
Wow.
And they're all on eBay for relatively affordable prices until I say this and like 2 people who listen to the show try to outbid me.
Right. Now, those types of novels are always special because they obviously were written over the course of 5 weeks, basically, and you can really feel it when you're reading.
Yeah.
This is just the first thing that would come to your mind if you wanted to say, like, he reached for his gun. I guess I'll put down he reached for his gun
But also, that is a lot of the time what he does.
It's true.
So, like,
yeah.
It gets you into the kind of the Hemingway question of, well, how hard did he try to write this simply?
Yeah,
you know?
Right, yeah.
I think I brought this up on some Clint episode about how it is, I think, easier to make a Simon Lang film than it is to make like a Michael Bay film. Like, without question, it takes less effort.
Yep, of course. Absolutely true.
Michael Bay, that's not who we're doing next. But we'll tell you who we're doing next at the end of the episode.
Yep.
But he's always in our hearts and our minds. We're always thinking about Michael Bay. I mean, I am.
I was just doing it for a second there as well.
Oh, yeah.
Just to be...
Think about his hair.
Yep. Not usually what I think about, but I could.
It's one of the main things. You want to jump into the 2 questions real quick?
Let's do it. I think I did one last time. You wanted to go first this time?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you have any feelings about the United States election that recently transgressed.
Oh, yeah. That's good. Timeless.
I meant transpired, and then I said...
I mean, unfortunately, part of the problem is that I would say that it wasn't offering enough transgression in the
it did not
left.
Transgress really at all.
I think maybe on the right, they did offer some of that. That was part of the issue, I would say.
Ostensibly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say...
Is that it? That's all? Okay.
No, I would say I don't have a lot of novel analysis to offer, except that the Democrats didn't offer anything to people that is meaningful. And what they did offer was watered down versions of stuff that they can get undiluted on the right. So why would they go to Kamala Harris?
Plus Liz Cheney in Michigan. I guess that's some of the stuff they can get undiluted on the right. But
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, just a total... I mean, the every time you think the Democratic Party cannot come up with a little more contempt for their base, which is basically everyone in the country who wouldn't vote Republican.
Yep.
They find a little more. They find yet
deeper.
Another way to say, you're a little pig and you're going to vote for me.
Yeah.
No matter what. And then, I mean, I'm fairly proud of the folks who didn't this time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And in case, well, I don't know who to be proud of, because, of course, as always, the Democrats' lesson is we were too woke. We were too concerned with protecting things like racial rights. But
where was the wokeness in the campaign?
There's none of it. And then they say that was too much. So that's what they do every time.
Right.
When they say progressives and third-party voters sabotage the party. Obviously not true. You guys got less of the Republican vote.
Yeah, and Trump got fewer votes this time than he did in 2020.
Yeah, you just didn't turn people out. You didn't excite people. That's obvious.
At all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, first reform style, neither of those parties would have offered the kind of timeline that we need to be working on anyway. So guys, you gotta just get out there and do some of the stuff you were planning to do. And it would have been nice to have 3% more investment in wind energy over the course of the next 50 years or whatever Kamala probably would have done. But
drill, baby, drill. Speaking of drill, baby, drill, I've been telling anyone who will listen, we vote for the president once every 4 years.
Yep.
But the laws of physics apply every day. For example,
right. They have to get it right every time. Yeah.
Just thinking of different things that are included in the laws of physics, as totally pulling this out of thin air, chemical ignition, something that works every day.
Yep.
So think about all the different tools in your toolkit, and don't just rely on the ballot box.
The types of wire cutters that you need to deactivate brakes. I don't know. That could be one of the tools in your toolkit.
Yeah, check out the New York Times wire cutter, best wire cutters. I mean, if they get that one wrong.
Damn. Yeah, that'd be humiliating.
Or you can take out your Hori. Remember we talked about that with Bob on the Master Gardener.
It would be a little ungainly, but we sure did.
It'd be cool, though.
It's true.
Some of that Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff.
Yep.
This journal brings me no peace. I'm putting a team together. They team up. I would love that for them.
Yeah. I mean, Thor would get along with Narvel. You know, that probably has some interest in runes in common.
Yep, he would. But then they would probably get in a fight about Heimdall. Remember that?
Anybody who was alive and keeping up with film heard about Heimdall a lot in what 2011?
Yeah, that was a big thing because you couldn't have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
Unless you wanted to just be racist. But nowadays, I mean, I feel like some elected official would weigh in on that sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Somebody who is in charge of like transportation for all of the East Coast would be spending time making a public announcement about this in either direction, and both are stupid.
Yep. Zachary Levi, I think, is going to be Department of Transportation.
Yep.
Ian, what do you got for me? 2 questions wise.
I would like to ask you, because it's probably not going to come up in the rest of the conversation. Did you discover any directors that you're excited about in the course of watching Paul Schrader?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Give us a horizon.
There's gotta be
new horizons. Yeah, there's simply gotta be.
I'm like 6 months behind on Letterboxd, but I'm just gonna go ahead and look at my diary here. Oh, you know what? F.W. Murnau. I've been reignited. My excitement about Sunrise has been reignited. I want to go back and go back to the Silent Guys.
He was texting me about Sunrise, and he's right about it, folks. Go watch Sunrise, Song of Two Humans.
Also, Anthony Mann Westerns, Bud Bedecker Westerns. I had not really dug into those.
Absolutely. And, yep.
Got myself odor pilled a little bit. Ian's taken some of those to try to reduce it. What about you? Have you been directed toward any new filmmaker interests?
I was just thinking about new filmmakers, but I like your idea of like people that I thought more about because of the stuff we were watching. I already like Christian Petzold, but you made me more excited about him watching Jericho. That was wonderful.
Good film.
Yeah. Alice Rohrwacher, the stuff that, I saw the TV Glow. Fun to see Paul talk about that. That was,
and Marty now.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm encouraged by it. Schrader's excited about film. Everybody correctly complains about the direction that Hollywood is going in terms of their funding structure and their interest in making money, being even worse than ever. But I don't know. It seems like people who have been making films since the time that everybody talks about films being great think that there are still great films being made. So
there are. Sometimes they sit on the shelf from 2014 to 2022, but there are still great films being made. Hey, come on. Let's not pick on that guy. I don't know why I did that.
No, but I mean, you're not wrong. It's a piece of shit.
Yeah. Good question. Thank you. So we got a lot of business to get to here. I re-listened to our episode last year I guess it was this year technically. I think we finished up in January or so. But
that sounds right. Yeah. What were you saying? What did we say about Paul Schrader?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
But I think we inadvertently established a number of traditions that we have to keep up now whenever we finish up a filmmaker's work. So first of all, as with last time, we had so many wonderful guests join us on the show, and now we're going to rank them from worst to best.
Yeah. Number 1.
The worst guest this year, I'm trying to think which of our friends, like who is the least
I think that's what you did last year.
Likely to be offended.
You just said one of our friends' names.
I guess Bob. He was the most recent one. Didn't even go on the show, like technically, different thing.
Right, yeah. Seems
Side
even meaner that way, don't you think?
Yeah, no, it was nice. It was nice listening to it back.
Come on. I won't even stand for it. Yeah, this is insane to say this.
This is the joke we did last time. Okay, next. The personal injury roundup. This is where we kind of went through and talked about all the injuries and illnesses that you and I accumulated over the course of the series here. Would you like to go first? I think your list might be longer than mine.
Sure. I did think about this because we did this last year. And it was sort of fitting that I shifted from action style musculoskeletal damage that I suffered in terms of BJJ nonsense or farm injuries. And now I pretty much got like a bunch of wasting diseases. I got
some internal rot.
Yeah, exactly. I got COVID, bronchitis. Then I got a series of skin infections from trying to go back to the gym, which is like the weakest, lamest thing that you can get from being...
Yeah, those didn't really come up.
Yeah, because I think they're nasty to talk about.
They are, yeah.
So we're going to keep not talking about them. And then, of course, I got dengue fever, which is,
And you got fucking dengue for a while. I recently saw that there was, I think, a confirmed case of dengue in California, maybe even LA County. So tell me next time you're in town.
I will, yeah. I mean, it is, although most of those I think are from people who traveled to countries with more mosquitoes, virulent mosquitoes, but it's shifting north over time. That's why there's millions more people who get dengue every year over the course of like the last 8 years. It's growing like, it's like doubling every year. It's like we're close to. It's insane.
Will God forgive us?
Will God forgive us is right. Yep.
He's trying to stop us with his little holy host of bugs.
Yeah, shame that it's starting in the places where people are least responsible for doing a lot of the bad stuff.
Could God create a mosquito so racist that even... All right, so here's what I have for my personal injury roundup. Of course, we started off with an insane sinus infection.
Yeah, we did.
In the back of my head.
But maybe this led to a bit of Schraderian grace. It sort of...
It did.
Yeah,
it did.
Great.
And a kind of... There was certainly a closeness that I experienced with another person. Of course, Dr. Michael Bublik. Yeah, because I had a sinus surgery. I had a balloon sinuplasty and a bit of a septoplasty as well. And then turned right around and did an episode within about 36 hours.
Yep. You sure
Check
did.
out our old boyfriends episode if you want to hear you guys talking like this. I mean, it was a great episode.
It was a wonderful episode. Mariah was great. And
terrific,
it kind of feels, I don't know, it's the type of film that a guy who sounds like that would have been watching in 1979.
Yeah, it sounds like an old boyfriends.
Yeah,
exactly. Didn't talk about this at all, but I think for the first, like, I don't know, a good chunk of the series, I was on mental health leave from work.
Yeah, sure were.
So
yeah, you were legally mentally unwell. Like you had.
If it seemed like I was doing more reading for those episodes, I was, because I had less to do during the day.
Yeah.
And then, as ever, just barely managed ADHD. They're telling me I'm up to 90 ADHD, maybe 95.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a personal injury roundup. Pretty exciting stuff. I hope we have some cool new ones.
I know.
Next time.
Since we know and the audience doesn't know, I'm trying to think about which types of diseases or injuries go with this dude. I don't know.
And it is a dude. He's giving it away.
Yeah.
I would say, based on who we're covering, Jeepers Creepers disease. No, come on.
Come on.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right. Next, I hate to make public someone else's premium content, but I was alerted to something that happened on the Blank Check Special Features Patreon feed.
What was that?
By our friend Chad Harbold.
Oh, okay.
He told me about this, and I feel that we are so closely involved that it's actually okay for me to play a 12-second clip from it.
Okay.
Now, they do a little bit of context here. They do something called the Burger Report.
Sure.
Which is whenever they put out a call. So whenever a listener to the show sees a famous person, a famo, eating a burger, there's a hotline that they can call to report their findings.
How often is that special red light going off? The one that the night agent monitors.
I think the red light is going off a lot more often than they check it by their own admission. And so this is the second in a series called Oops All Burger Reports, where they go back and check back through the archive. And I guess they were getting so many dudes calling in that they enlisted the friend of their show and repeat guest, the great writer Esther Zuckerman.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And asked, Esther, have you seen anybody eating a hamburger? And she talked about going to a restaurant, the Joe Allen restaurant. It's I guess a famous Broadway haunt, and offered this in particular.
Recently, I was eating there, and as I walked out, I ran into Bilga Ibiri, friend of the pod, who had just been having dinner with Paul Schrader.
Whoa.
Now,
likely thing for him to be doing.
So we can triangulate this. We've heard about this incident also.
I mean, I assume that is the fateful dinner where Bilga told Paul Schrader about our podcast. She did not specify whether either or both of them had a hamburger. I don't think Bilga told us either.
He did.
Maybe he did.
Yeah.
Which one of them had a burger?
I'm fairly certain that one of them had a burger. I know that he told us what they ate, and it might have been some type of a sandwich. Yeah, okay. I know you. It was you. Back. How could you not know yourself well enough to say it was me and I asked?
Well, why wouldn't you ask?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Thank you. I'm right to have. So I learned from this burger report that the Joe Allen restaurant hamburger is both famously good and famously off menu. And you simply have to be a Bilge Ebiri, Paul Schrader, Liza Minnelli level New York
Interesting
celeb.
Susan Sontag hands you the secret menu, and then you say, thank you, Sue.
Yes, exactly. I went to camp with her. Is that anything? No, that sucks. Cutting it out.
Don't cut it out. I mean, it's funny. What if the name of her famous essay was Notes on Going to Camp?
Hello, Mutta. Hello, Fada.
Stupid.
Yeah, I know. So that's fun. Fun.
Yeah.
A little almost mentioned.
That's really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Patreon.com/blank check, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great.
You can find the blank check Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
We believe in your ability to search for stuff, to Bing it.
Yep.
Next, I didn't remember this. I wonder if you did. We decided to start beef with another podcast. Do you have any recollection of this?
No, I don't remember this at all.
I mean, it was pretty righteous, our beef.
Okay.
We decided to start beef with Michael Barbaro of The Daily.
Oh, wow. Yeah, good for us. What's the update on that?
I was going to ask you, how do you think we did?
I think we did now that you mentioned it, there was that
He's
time
down to the Every Other Daily. They changed the name. We tired him out.
Mm-hmm.
Got him on the ropes.
And there was that Harry Brown style moment where we accosted him in like an underpass, under subway walkway, and he went on a racially motivated streak of violence.
I mean, he did do that, but as I've asked you before, don't talk about our Harry Brown style moments on the podcast.
Okay.
That's private. Some stuff can't be content.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we should switch to a new beef target.
Okay.
I didn't like saying that.
Yeah.
I was going through the top podcasts, and they're all pretty... I mean, they're a little too... It's like, it's a lot of Daily Wire stuff and like Call Her Daddy and girl boss stuff and man boss stuff.
The murder you didn't know about yet.
Yeah. So... Unless you have like somebody you feel strongly about.
You and me could kill Andrew Huberman in a knife fight.
That guy has got a harem. Did you read that article about his harem?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but it's not a harem because they don't know about each other. So it's an unconsenting harem.
They know about each other now, though. They have like a support group text.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, Andrew Huberman.
I drink my coffee right when I wake up, bitch.
Yeah, I get up 1 minute before you, you fucker. Every time you get up, guess what? I'm already up.
I'm awake, and I've done one piece of business.
I'm going to stand in between him and the sun. You know how he goes outside and gets the sun on him?
Yeah.
I'm blocking it. I'm blocking his shit.
I'm going to disrupt the creatine supply chain on you, man. You're done for.
Absolutely. Yeah, Andrew Huberman, consider your days small numbered.
I mean, he pretends to work at the university pretty close to where my family lives. So
he just like doesn't... He's like not really there. Yeah. He's got like a lab that's like a closet.
But I could definitely find him over Christmas if I wanted to. Maybe I don't know how often he goes to the lab. But
we're going to turn Andrew Huberman into Andrew Stuberman. This guy's going to be driving a Stuber by the time we're done with him.
I don't really know what that movie's about.
It's about a guy named Stu who drives an Uber. It's like Comedy Collateral, I believe, is what it is.
Right. Is that
Kumail
Dave Bautista?
It's Bautista and it's Kumail.
Yep. What a moment, huh?
Who do you think has the lower body fat percentage at this point?
Oh, great question.
So we've finished with the films of Paul Schrader until Canada in a few weeks.
Yep.
How do we feel about Paul Schrader now?
It's a big question. Yeah, let's do a little tennis ball rally with each other, because I assume we're going to touch on some of the same things. So I'm not going to just try to chunk out my whole list here. First things first, I knew some of the heights he was capable of. Mm-hmm. I don't think I knew all of them. I don't think I knew that he was as interested in things like in-scene art direction or experimental visual filmmaking, like, explicitly stagey stuff, or the type of lighting things we know he messes around with. I guess I didn't know that he was like the conformist loving guy, in addition
to
much of
an aesthete.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was fun to discover. And I do think that he was more collaborative than I thought. I thought of him as kind of, one of these classic auteurs or semi-auteurs who are focused on their own vision of things. And certainly we found some through lines in his work. So there's a lot of Schrader in Schrader films. But I also think that I was just kind of pleasantly surprised that he's a guy who also sees his art as being made with other people. Your Scorsese's, your Scarfiati's, Eiko Shioda, Philip Glass, Pinter, and McEwen. Basically, I would say fully half his films, he sort of identifies as big collaborators, people that have a big, an
outsized co-collaborator.
Yeah. So those are two things that I enjoyed discovering right off the bat. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking back at some of the goals that we set out for ourselves, and first of all, I don't think I ever really figured out what Calvinism is. Like, I have a sense of Calvinism, but it's not like I could write a essay on Calvinism, specific Calvinist doctrine within the universe of Paul Schrader. I guess I could, but I would have to do more research. What I'm saying is I'm not ready to go. I'm not ready to defend my dissertation.
Yeah, I think we addressed it the right amount. It came up a lot, and it came up more at the beginning when he was more Calvinist, and then since then it's come up sort of obliquely, and I think we've addressed it obliquely. So I don't feel like we missed out on his Calvinist stuff. Do you feel like we did? You wish you could have understood that side of him better?
I mean, we did the sexual obsession check-in, and I wonder if we could have done a Calvinist check-in.
I mean, we basically did. We did a tulip check-in for like the first 5.
Yeah, we did the tulip.
Yeah.
But I've been reading Foregone, the Russell Banks novel that O Canada is based on, and Calvinism just came up. So
this
pretty
is why
exciting.
Schrader
threw the book across the room.
Yeah.
Seized for 20 minutes. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I also didn't really do as much reading as I wanted to. Obviously, more at the top when I was legally barred from the workplace.
Yep.
By my own decision. Self-barred. Yeah.
Like an autofocus. Yeah.
It's a group, Bob. But there's plenty of. I got a deep shelf here. So if we ever want to, maybe that's Patreon stuff. Go back and read a damn. Mosquito Coast or whatever. Sure. I think we did a good job. Schrader was certainly a guy who did heavy referencing. I think we kind of discovered that he returns to a lot of the same references, and then it seems like I don't want to say that he's shallow. That would be not just unfair, but untrue. He is thinking about the things that were raised by these texts, literature, other pieces of film. Yes, but I think it's sort of like the same set of concerns that he's interested in all these things. Yeah. Well, as much as we talked about him, and he talked about himself as a kind of shallow expert or a somebody who jumps headfirst into becoming an expert on a new topic for about 2 weeks and then moved on to the next thing. Reads about Sukarno on the beach of when he's on vacation, in Indonesia. Yeah, exactly. And I think so as much as there's that, there's also these obsessions. I mean, his I think his body of work has even more of a thematic through line than Clint's does. Clint's has a few that we tracked, but with Schrader, whether it's a man in a room type of film or not, whether it's a new avatar of Travis Bickle, Travatar, it sucks that we're just coming up with that now. Yeah, could have been great for us. Could have used. We're gonna go back. Year. We're gonna do a special edition of the earlier episodes. Whether it's one of those or more of a Patty Hearst or Mishima or a Touch film, I think he's got certain things that keep him up at night that he returns to, which override or at least like deepen the armchair expert type of thing. We should beef with Dax Shepard, actually. Isn't his podcast dying? Feels mean to beef with somebody who I think is like being run out of the industry, basically. Kristen Bell, we're coming for you. Yeah. Sending you to Veronica Neptune. Oh, yeah. It's further away. Yep. No, I mean, I think, so when we started this season, you said on our conclusions episode that Schrader has made some of your favorite films, which I think is still true for me. But I think I came in with extremely high expectations, and I was expecting to be blown away. And so sometimes, and this was borne out through the series, I think I maybe appear on the show to be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what happened is basically like with a Clint type, where the expectation is that this guy is sort of artless and leaves the set by 2:30 p.m. and just does a single take and cranks them all out.
There's a lot of pleasant surprise.
You can only go, the only way is up. The only way is Essex, you know?
Yep.
And with a guy who you think of as this like deeply thoughtful genius, of course, anytime it's not that, you're going to feel a little let down. And I think that's a lesson for me about sort of coming in, looking to contend with whatever the filmmaker, whoever the filmmaker is, rather than my expectation of them. We see this a lot, certainly when we read criticism of Schrader as well. It's like, the guy is not the meme version of himself, he's the real version of himself.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wrote down as well, is that I do think that the critical conversation around Schrader, despite him being a very talked about person for film fans, we've addressed in our podcast the fact that he's still not the type of person that you could bring up at any dinner party and people would say, oh yeah, Paul Schrader, of course.
Especially compared to a Clint Eastwood. Everyone has, even if they have this cartoon idea of him, they have an idea of him.
Exactly. Whereas Schrader is one of the big names, and I don't know who I would put him on par with, like Bogdanovich or something. Somebody where, like, if you've studied a bit of film, you basically have to have come across him. And yet, I think a lot of the ways that people talk about him, maybe it's just because you're doing a lot of summary work, or these like big sweeping views of film history, and you're always going to be kind of reductive. But there's a lot of man in room. There's a lot of solitary man. But I was enjoying the fact that I think Schrader we talked about his sort of strategy of like find a theme, find a controlling metaphor, and then find a person who represents that and explore them. I think he is trying to figure out, like, in these different people, what is the part that he can recognize, that he can relate to. And I think it's kind of nice that it's non-condescending. And I think, I don't think Schrader is Travis Bickle, but there is some of Schrader in Travis Bickle. And I don't think Schrader is Mishima, but there is a little bit of him there. And I think not in a boring, repetitive way, at least for me. I think his best films, even something like A Blue Collar, where it's further from his experience in some regard, he is thinking about, like, all right, what is this atmosphere that I grew up in, this area, the concerns of people that I knew, how did people address, like financial problems? How did they talk to each other? We addressed plenty of the fact that most of the ways that he interprets these experiences are through, I would describe, like a kind of a timeless clash of some type of, human personality element with some element of their social environment. And then also sort of interpreted through something hyper specific for that cultural moment or geographical space or whatever. So I was thinking about the fact that even though I found way less transcendental style than I expected to in his films, something that I would say that he has in common with somebody like an Ozu, more than stylistic choices, is the fact that there's these people, they're in like a really sort of simple dynamic with each other, a dynamic that is relatable and comprehensible to most people, but is also maybe defined by being in, for Ozu, like post-war Japan, rebuilding industrial Japan or something. And then just saying, okay, what happens if you just follow these people in this moment and look at how they talk to each other and look at how they get fired from their jobs or something. And that's it. That's the whole movie. And then I do think Schrader does like to add some layers of spectacle or sort of like trashy indulgence. And that was also surprising to me a little bit.
That's another thing that surprised me, is his talent. And I would say even like enthusiasm or fondness for the entertainment, the storytelling aspect of, and he speaks candidly, obviously, about everything, but he speaks candidly about like the practical financial considerations that go into the shape of his scripts. I mean, it's the rare Schrader film where very little happens because, there needs to be a gunfight at the end of Light Sleeper to secure the financing. And I don't know that I expected as much movie making from somebody who I thought of as a filmmaker, to use sort of reductive terms. And yeah, I mean, I wanted to ask also about, how we're feeling about film criticism generally after this season, because, Schrader, one of the most famous American film critic turned filmmaker guys, obviously not the first person to do that, the Cahiers du Cinema crowd being just one example, but
of course,
he seems to have pretty consciously and like openly decoupled those ways of thinking, at least until First Reformed. But he'll talk about, how the critic in him wants one thing and the filmmaker in him wants another thing, despite still like doing some film criticism throughout his career. But he, I think he has to leave that hat at home when he's making Dominion.
Right. And I think I was expecting a Godard style critic filmmaker, like somebody who is trying to bring their criticism to the screen. And
I'm kind of relieved we didn't get that. I'm not crazy about a lot of words on the screen that aren't like subtitles and stuff.
I know you're not. I would say I was mixed on it. In some ways, I thought it was fun because I also think it's part of the reason. It's great that you pointed this out. The fact that Schrader is so clear-eyed about his own work relative to, I'm going to say, most artists, not even just filmmakers, but just being able to say like, hey, we wanted to do this. I don't think it worked that well. Yeah. Because we were trying to recreate the rhythm of this specific type of film. And he is a guy who knows the history of film so well, saying like, we wanted to take this thing that was in noir, and you can go read his beautiful noir essay, and then say, I wanted to try to capture that. And it didn't really go because these characters aren't those type of characters or something, right? He can just sort of see, or, this, or he would just say straight up, I was trying to make a good action scene. I'm not that good at shooting action. So I didn't.
Exactly. Or like Woody Harrelson was afraid to be gay enough.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's cool. It meant that sometimes it made me more bold in being critical of like, I don't feel like this worked necessarily for him, because I sense that this is, or for me, this would have been the best version of this scene. And I don't know. I think in terms of other people's film criticism about Schrader, other things that I feel like people overlook, his being kind of a dog, being kind of like a nasty guy in a way that I respect. I'm saying that in like a complimentary way.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's, as opposed to an Eastwood who, we talked plenty about the regret that suffuses almost every Clint Eastwood movie, but generally there is a somewhat redemptive aspect to it, or a I mean, there's redemption at the end of whatever, Gran Torino. But Schrader is much more comfortable showing the ugliness of his being, his person.
Yes, absolutely.
Both in terms of horniness and in terms of alienation from other people.
Yeah, mistreatment of other people. Yeah.
Yeah, like when he dangled Bill Duke off of a balcony and dropped him by accident.
Yeah. So, I mean, Bill Duke is dead, right? So I was going to say R.I.P.
Wait,
Bill
is
Duke.
he?
But, oh, yeah, I thought he was dead.
Wait.
But I don't think that's how he died. Oh, no, he's alive. Okay.
Yeah.
Then.
What the fuck?
This is great news.
Leave him alone.
Never mind. Yeah. Hey, me and Paul Schrader, we should both leave Bill Duke alone.
He's only 81.
Yeah. He looks good.
Yeah. I mean, the Wikipedia picture is from 5 years ago, but he looks good, and he looks good at 76.
Yeah. Yep. We're probably going to get the chance to talk about him again.
I certainly hope so. When we're doing the films of Panos Cosmatos. No, come on. We're doing the films of Mark L. Lester, director of Commando.
That's right.
Well, wait, hold on. What else did he do? Okay, hold on.
Hold on. This might be right.
Last minute pivot.
Yep.
Armed and Dangerous with John Candy.
Firestarter. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Blowback. That's the basis of the podcast.
Of course. Yeah.
Mario Van Peebles and James Remar film from 2000. Blowback.
Hey, yeah. We've talked about Van Peebles.
He produced a lot of this? I don't know, man. We're going to take another look at Mark L. Lester. Anyway.
Anything else that you took away criticism-wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing some reevaluations take place. Obviously, that was something that inspired the beginning of the Clint podcast, is like this second look. But seeing some of the same Galaxy Brained characters take on the Canyons, take on some of his more depraved stuff. Seeing the cinematograph 4K maybe of Touch, fascinating.
Yep.
And also to kind of look at the not just reevaluation, but like rediscovery, animation of Old Boyfriends was cool to check out.
That was very cool and just a wonderful coincidence that we didn't plan for at all.
Yeah. So, but yeah, overall, I think film critics are a bunch of idiots, except the ones who come on the show who are very smart.
Yep, I think that's
anyone
right.
who have and anyone who will. Those are the good ones.
So get in line. This is how you can actually choose to be in the elect. You can self-elect.
Exactly. Exactly. You can. You just got to let a snake bite you.
Yeah.
That's not what they do. That's not even how it works. Do we have any thoughts on political art after Pod Casty For Me Season 2?
We kind of addressed this the last few weeks, so I don't want to repeat too much. But I think my discoveries were basically from the time we read articles about Blue Collar up until the end of Schrader, that most of the things that have gotten me charged up politically about Schraderian works, or Schrader's works specifically, both, are things that he would not say were like his main interests, which is not to say that they're not in the film. I don't think he even says that they're not in the film. Sometimes he said that, which I think he's being silly, or he's being a little bit obtuse on purpose.
He's being cheeky. He's being David Lynch's list of clues to understand Mulholland Drive, where he says like, look at who has a phone in their room.
That's right. Any scene that has like a picture of a coconut in the background is part of a riddle. Yeah. I think that Schrader is not lying. I think he is concerned with moral questions and like questions of socialization that he has been concerned about for basically his whole life and has struggled with. I think part of that coming out of the Calvinist upbringing, part of that coming out of his fraught times in New York, living with suicidal depression.
Again, don't talk about our fraught times in New York.
All right.
It's called frottage.
Yes. Yeah. Did Schrader make a film about docking at any point? I don't.
It's a group grow up.
Yep. That's right. So I think he sees these things and he sees the power in them for him personally. And I would just argue that the power in those things is connected to the great political questions of our time. So
it's
he's
admirable.
sort of like arriving at them intentionally looking in a different direction while walking backwards or something.
Yeah. He knows they're in the room. He's not looking. It's like when you're approaching like a great ape. You don't make eye contact.
Yeah. Every time I start the
smile.
podcast. Yeah.
Hey, I'm a lesser ape.
Oh, no.
No, I'm just trying to be clear-eyed about it, but not directly clear-eyed.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think, it's a lesson for us, or for me at least, that the political value of a film is not totally unrelated to, but certainly separate from the political intentions of its creator. We know this, we knew this, but it's important to be reminded constantly. And also that I think, I don't know if I've done this on the show, but I sometimes think of the kind of cultural analysis that we try to do with these movies as like a dream analysis, where it's not necessarily the surface content of the material that is what's having the biggest impact, what's animating the film.
Right.
Often it's a bunch of severely underpaid, overworked guys in the Philippines.
Or Korea, anyway, historically. Yeah.
No. But I think Schrader is admirable in his refusal to like disconnect those Calvinist ideals, or in some cases Calvinist like guilty curse placed on him.
Yep.
He refuses to like not direct that at Abu Ghraib and not direct that at the destruction of the planet. And as much as, First Reformed like didn't work in terms of that film being released and then the climate crisis being stopped.
No.
But I mean, everyone I've talked to about it was radicalized to some extent or another by the film.
It would be in the top 10 of my list of mainstream films that might have an actual effect on your politics. Maybe top 5.
Yep. I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry.
Right.
Dunstan checks in.
Firemen. What are their job in that?
They are firemen, I believe.
Yeah.
My super ex-girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
No idea what happens in that movie. Anyway, but I mean, the card counter also didn't. It's not like more people got sent to jail for their responsibility. But I think for all his discursive provocations on Facebook, Schrader is looking directly at some things that other filmmakers, especially American filmmakers, are simply afraid to, and perhaps like reasonably afraid to, because we've seen that it's pretty impossible to make a genuinely transgressive film that also gets distribution and shown in theaters, especially as the art house ecosystem gets contracted and just turns into AMC Artisan or whatever. Like there's a weird gold border that they put around certain posters in the AMC app to tell you that this movie is going to be.
This is a thinker. This is Godzilla will make you think about climate change.
I mean, genuinely, sometimes it is like fucking Venom 3 is an AMC Artisan film. I have no idea why.
Yeah.
Godzilla does make me think about climate change, though. What are you talking about? That's one of the most climate change films there is.
I was half joking, but I do think that, Schrader's a guy, I brought up The Conformist. He's a guy who would watch The Conformist and tell you very genuinely, this is a film about like pathological cowardice, or this is a film about, what happens when you are so in need of affirmation that it overrides everything else. And then I would say that's true, but it's also a film about fascism, because it's like all about fascism and about it. And I don't think he's unaware of that. I think he's picking these issues we've talked about because he understands that they are related to these concerns, and they're the most interesting manifestations of these concerns. And what did he say in those first Reformed interviews? He's like, look, I don't think 2100 is going to be livable for a lot of humans on this planet. So it's not like he doesn't know. I just think that he has a slightly knee-jerk reaction of thinking that films that are like message films or films that are thinking about like how would you achieve change or political questions in that sense of like how do we create something like a meaningful structure, that's not necessarily interesting to him. But I think that's just a totally limited vision of what political art is to me. And I think there's many more types of it. I think he is making it.
I think so too. Would love to ask him about it.
Yep.
So we have now we turn now to something we did at the end of the Clint series, which is Schrader in 5 films.
Yeah, this was difficult for me for Eastwood in a different way than it was difficult for me for Schrader.
Well, I mean, similarly, it's sort of Schrader in 3 films. Maybe you agree, because you kind of have to bookend it with Taxi Driver and First Reformed. So to me, unfortunately, it became Schrader in like 2 films, and that was tough. Because Blue Collar is in there too, or what's it? Yep. Yeah. So, what do you have? Schrader. Right. This is like, so to clarify, this is
explain the project.
A snapshot. If we have to pick 5 films that kind of get at the gestalt of this guy's whole deal, if someone has 10 hours in which to learn what Paul Schrader's deal is, what 5 films do we give them?
Yeah, and I want to echo what I said for Clint. For Clint, it was challenging to me because I was shocked at what range he had. Then we really discovered that he was making so many different types of film and making them well. And I felt like I had to try to capture all those. I do think Schrader has a lot of range. I'm going to be honest. I think I discovered that a lot of his stretch films were not amongst my favorite of his. So
that's fair to say. Yeah.
I think I was challenged in a different way where I don't know if this totally represents Schrader, because he does do some weird stuff. And I will say right now, honorable mention to Cat People, for example. Not on my list, but I think it is representative of a Schrader film, something that he knew he was stretching for, and he kind of looks down on the genre of horror and is constantly saying, Ty West, wasting your time or something.
I mean, he is, but just him specifically.
But I think I ended up with kind of a boring list. Here's my list. So Blue Collar, I didn't know how to not include it because it's one of the great films of all time. And it is, it does express range in the sense that it's not a man in a room. It is like working class people, racial questions, 3 different protagonists, kind of a genre-y subplot that guides the film. So I don't know, a comedy in some parts. Taxi Driver, of course, don't really need to weigh in on that again. We talked a lot about it. Mishima I put in because I had to include one of these high visually artistic films, experimental visual style, and I think it's a wonderful one. It's just one of the great films to me. Dark, put in the film of Dark.
Okay, interesting.
This is where I try to catch trashy Schrader elevating things in an interesting way. And I think it's not one of my favorite films of his. This is not Schrader's best 5 films, but I think Schrader's a dude who is finding all these genre pieces and trying to use them to talk about things that he thinks are of note, and also do it in a way that he thinks is kind of engaging in an editing style and a color style and all these questions. And I think Dark is doing all those things very imperfectly, but in a fun, interesting way. And then, of course, First Reformed. I don't know, what, couldn't leave it off the list. What about you?
Excellent list. I have exactly the same list, except instead of Dark, I have included American Gigolo because I think I and everyone underestimates the insane influence that film had, like aesthetically, first of all. And also I think it's a significant, to me, like illustration of the limits of the transposition of the Travis Bickle character, where like it doesn't quite work for me, but also clearly the film struck a chord. And I think in addition to Mishima, it gets at the homoerotic elements in Schrader's work that are under discussed, I think. Well, if not under discussed, like they're left out of the God's Lonely Man conversation because so much of it is about like obsession with these mother Madonna figures, or like
existential crises or something. Yes, I think you're totally right.
So, but other than that, I have Taxi Driver, Blue Collar, and Mishima and First Reformed on my list. We also did 5 films that surprised us.
This was more fun for me.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so these are kind of, I mean, with Schrader, I would say I agree with you that many of the stretch films, as you call them, are less successful, but not all of them. Some of the stretch films is quite interesting. So I have
Flubber, for example.
Yeah, I have Flubber on there. I have Fantastic Four, The Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the great stretches in cinema.
The Hitcher, there's that part where somebody gets tied between 2 trucks. They don't really stretch for that long, but I guess for
Eat,
just
Pray,
a second.
Love. Does she do yoga in that film? Never seen it.
She's got to have done it. And then we need a 5th stretch film, which is, of course, Die Hard. The guy's in the limo.
God, dude, very good.
The film. Thank you. Below the film.
Below the building. Yes, he's
5 films that surprised us. Old Boyfriends. Old Boyfriends.
I love it.
I mean, certainly just a gorgeous looking film. Yep. Also, I learned so much in the research for that episode, and fascinating to see a God's Lonely Woman type character.
A top Schrader film also for everything he says about the movie is dismissive and like almost wrong, and yet the movie is very good.
Yes, that's correct. Patty Hearst, I was excited to check out Patty Hearst, and I think you and I discussed our various problems with it. You had more of them than I did, but I think certainly visually, but also just in terms of the unexpected sympathies that film has really, really struck me. The Comfort of Strangers, I assume, is probably on your list. I had not seen it before. It's Paul's beauty film, as he called it, and just a totally like beguiling film that gets its hooks in you. And I still think about it fairly often. Now here is where I wonder how you'll feel.
Okay.
Dominion, prequel to The Exorcist.
Well, not that crazy to me.
I was surprised by first of all, how much Schrader is in it, and how much. I mean, I enjoyed the comparison process of watching that and Exorcist: The Beginning, and also how fairly unsparing it is in its depiction of like colonial Africa and the religious basis for like so much suffering.
And this film's not on my list, but I think this is a good support for what you were saying earlier, where if you had told me that Paul Schrader made an Exorcist film, I would have expected like an Eric Romer. And you said there's a conversation between a priest and the devil. Like, I really would have expected like these guys just start to go in on what does it mean to be determined to do something.
Yeah.
And yet, it's not really. It's like, I mean, those things are there.
Yeah.
So it is Schrader, but it's not this total heavyweight version, nor is it a totally like transcendental Exorcist or something. So I think that's a good film to support what you're saying about it.
And then I have Dark.
Of course. Yeah.
From your Schrader in 5 films list, where really just like learning that and not First Reformed, that was the artistic reinvigoration, the kind of, he sort of went into the Lazarus pit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's Schrader's Lazarus pit, artistically.
Like Ra's al Ghul, yeah.
From Friends.
They say Raish. How do you say this guy's name?
They say Ra's al Ghul, which doesn't make a lot of sense either. Oh, it's not. We gotta get away from Batman stuff. So those are my 5 films that surprised me. What about you?
Great. I put Hardcore on there, a film that I was sort of, I was going to say soft on, which is not, that's not, I mean, I think it's...
Well, because he conceives of such an incredible whole like fantastical genre of films that feature people having sex in them for real.
Right. It's his mind.
The man's imagination.
What is he? What kind of things is he smoking over there? I think the film has stayed with me. That's the reason it's on my list, is that I don't think it's one of those Schrader films that like the emotional rhythms left me a little bit cold, and yet there's so much in there, like so much great filmmaking. There's so much to think about. Even just the sections that take place before he leaves his hometown are so interesting that, I don't know, I feel like it shouldn't surprise me because lots of people love this film, and yet, you know, the sort of like full circle experience that I had was interesting. Patty Hearst also on my list for the same reasons you said. Just a gorgeous film. Mm-hmm. And this feels like, if we're saying Schrader films that not enough people are talking about, that might be number 1 for me. This
absolutely.
This, and then followed closely by Comfort of Strangers, also on my list, because anybody who's interested in this dude feels like they should be discussing these films, and they're getting like 1/80th of the spotlight that his other films are. So.
And the Comfort of Strangers like has a Criterion release. I mean, it's not like it doesn't have attention.
It's not like it's inaccessible either. I don't know. It's odd. Touch on my list. It was of all the films that people think are bad of Schrader's, it was the one that I enjoyed the most. I think it's funny. I think it's more Elmore Leonard than people say, and yet I also think you and I discussed it. I think the things that are not Elmore Leonard didn't bother me, and in fact, I felt like it was kind of an interesting fusion of their styles and interests. So it just straight up works for me, even with its issues. So I would say Touch, people should go watch. And then Affliction is my last one. Not because it's like an underseen film. I would say it's probably like in tier 2 Schrader in terms of how much people recognize it and how much acclaim it gets. But
I mean, it was very recognized at the time by the critical establishment. It just hasn't stuck with in the conversation quite as much.
Yeah, and I think the parts that made me put on this list as surprising are the sort of like Russell Banks small town concerns, like so much more. The film has in common with Lynch these interests in like, what would your job be in this town? And I don't know, those types of elements I felt like were much more well observed, and the film feels kind of like something you would see on TV, and I weirdly mean that as a compliment, where it's like, just is tight. It's there's very little space in terms of how it looks at all these characters and their concerns. So I don't know, I enjoyed it for different reasons than I expected to, is the reason that it's on my list. And I think
about Affliction as well. I've been thinking about it, not just because I'm reading the Russell Banks book,
right?
But, also because I've been meaning to take you hunting.
Yeah, I mean, it was an accident,
just like Shaney.
Yep.
So what's next? What's the show from here? That's a question we asked last time. Some of the questions I had from my notes then is this the show about movie stars who become directors? No, obviously not. Although
anymore,
he does
yeah.
star in Dog Eat Dog
Of
as
course.
Greco the Greek.
Greco the Greek, yeah.
But it's not about that. I think it's about, I mean, we also asked if it was about cinema's chroniclers of masculinity. I think that's certainly part of it. And, you know, if we ever get a wild hair up our asses to talk about John Ford for 2.5 years, then I think that'll fit right in. But
and I think all three of these directors do share an interest in forms of American masculinity. But I think that's also such a catch-all that, I don't know, half of directors maybe do that.
I think we certainly are interested in a type of auteur that is more than director. That is director plus something else or plus several other things. And, you know, we were wondering if this was going to follow conservative or crypto-conservative filmmakers who might have something more interesting going on. That's not... Is your cat eating tinfoil?
No, somebody is, I believe, crushing plastic bottles outside. But if you can't hear it, that's great.
That's fine. That's not the place we're going next. I think that's going to be something that figures into our decisions as we go along. But I think more politically slippery, I think, is maybe the term that grasps what we're getting at. I think the person we're looking at next is certainly more classically liberal or left-leaning than
I agree.
These first two guys, but maybe we'll complicate that. I assume we will complicate that as we watch. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts about the shape of, because, you know, it takes, as famously as I said, on
that water that we're going to be talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. We're talking Gilly. Gilly DT. No. I would be kind of bored.
Yeah. No, I don't want to talk about it. I mean, I think some of his films are fun. Yeah.
I agree. Hellboy.
I think everything you said is right. We're talking about directors plus, because the director is, to sum it all up, the American director can be like a workman, can be somebody who is just concerned with getting films out or structural stylistic stuff. I think both of the people we've talked about so far are people who have made more choices than that in their career. And I think we're looking at people who make like enough of a statistically significant set of choices for us to really consider. Right. And also it feels like their choices are disparate enough, politically incoherent enough that it's worth examining. And I do think that this guy, definitely, I totally agree. He's the type, almost the type of person that I was shying away from initially, which is somebody who sort of has like pretty good politics. And yet I think in preparing for this and thinking about his body of work, I wonder about the amount of depth that really lies behind these considerations, these sort of questions of class and race and gender, which come up explicitly in his films. Like he will just say like this, you know, his characters will talk about this happened to me because I'm in such and such a position or identity or group or whatever. But I wonder how much consideration there is for like what that means for us or the type of world we want to build.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see what we find. And I also think...
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, what does it mean? Like, what does it mean? Can we strive for a world where you do touch a black man's radio? Right. That's who we're covering next.
Yes. Yeah.
No. Because he's not just a director. He's a director, I mean, with Rat Pack Dune, some of the directing plus that he's done.
Producer extraordinaire. That's a great point. Yeah.
No, but before we tell you exactly who we're doing, I do want to just name a few people we aren't doing, both to head off a few of the very lovely tweets that we get where people suggest people that they would like us to talk about, and also just a little peek behind the curtain at some of the discussions we've had.
I think this is good. This is healthy.
First of all, we're not doing David Mamet because Ian said he didn't want to have a bad time most of the time, and I think that is perfectly acceptable.
I think there are a couple Mamet films of the ones that I've seen that I like. Some of his theater work, and I'm not even saying some of his works. I'm saying some within his works of dramatic writing. There are pieces that I like. I just think that the dude has a fascination with parts of life that I'm not that interested in, and I think his understanding of certain things that I am interested in seem shallow to me. So that's why I wasn't interested in that.
That's perfectly fine. We may end up covering The Edge if I can talk Ian into discussing the films of Bart the Bear with me. That was another idea.
Yeah.
We're not counting it out, but it's not next.
It's not off the table.
I proposed Ivan Reitman as one of the other premier libertarians.
I didn't shoot this down. I considered Reitman.
Well, we considered it, but then we determined a lot of it is not that interesting.
And I also think we were concerned that critiquing comedies based on like political and thematic content, not to say that comedies can't have those things. Going back to Aeschylus, you can have these, whatever this is an age old blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. It felt like we were going to be commenting on how shallow they were on some things, and people were going to feel like, well, yeah, I mean, Ghostbusters is a little bit shallow on the investigations of
anti-EPA film.
Exactly. So
end
of
episode. Yeah. Okay. And then we're not doing Stallone for the time being. He recently said a bunch of Trumpy stuff, so I think we'd at least need some space from Stallone to explore that. I had a wild hair up my ass. I mean, look, there's a bunch in there. It's predominantly coming from inside out. That is something I've been talking to my therapist about.
Yeah.
But I wanted to maybe propose that we do Taylor Sheridan and watch every episode of Yellowstone and Tulsa King and Lioness and whatever else he's got. But I think that's...
Did this suggestion make it to me? Did we talk about it?
No, it didn't.
Yeah, okay.
Because I realized that I would just be like saying TV sucks every week, and that would get tiresome for me even.
And we got to talk about Hell or High Water last week. When did we talk about that?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll have to dig up the drum roll from last time that had a computer voice saying royalty free on top of it or whatever it was. Who are we talking about next? Steven Soderbergh.
That's right.
We're going Sody. We're going out for a Sody pop.
Other cinematic SS. Yeah. That's
Wait, who's the first one?
Steven Spielberg.
I thought maybe you meant Sylvester Stallone. Sarandon. Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone, that's right, yeah.
Slappy Seal. Isn't that like a cartoon from the 20s or something?
Maybe. So yeah, this dude, Steven Soderbergh, he's our most already discussed director yet. How do you feel about that?
I mean, he's close to it, just I think because of how many of his films we've seen.
Yeah, and he's the type of guy that is like right at the intersection of somewhat interested in art and style and editing, and pushes the boundaries of what is in popular Hollywood film, and yet also is the type of person that critics can talk about and get a normal person to read their treatise on this guy.
I think he's closer to an Eastwood than a Schrader, in that I think his first impulse is not just to entertain, but to like attract viewers. And his second impulse is to challenge thematically or formally or whatever. Yep. Although he does a lot of formal experimentation, which I'm excited to get into.
The jump, and also in a way that evolves, I think. And one of my questions is going to be, does late Soderbergh, would he like early Soderbergh? I mean, I will say straight up now, I'm aware of a quote, I think, where he said, I would edit Sex, Lies, and Videotape totally differently. Like, in terms of how he would do it, because he famously is like a guy who edits all his stuff the day he shoots, but also because I think he has just developed different interests and tastes over time. And I'm interested to see how that goes. I
am as well. I think he's sort of a fusion of our first two subjects in a way, because he's very unprecious about his work, like in Eastwood, but he's also seen as an intellectual guy. I mean, he wears glasses. He's extremely forthcoming about process and comfortable talking about other filmmakers' work. I mean, he's done all these commentaries on classic films that are, closer to a Schrader notes on film noir, whatever, than Eastwood saying, I always liked Bud Whittaker.
That's right. Yeah. End of conversation.
Although I recently saw a clip of Clint talking about the Oxbow incident and like very specific choices in in this shot, they keep his hat the brim of his hat is blocking the eyes of the other actor, and I always thought that was a interesting choice. You know, like he's not he's a filmmaker. Yeah,
go back to our first season. We discovered that he's a filmmaker. Yeah,
we did. And I, there's a few things that I am interested to learn. First of all, about us, which is, can we talk about eroticism, the body, desire, without sweating or saying tee hee hee?
Because, of course, in contrast to a Schrader, when he does desire, he is making erotic film. I mean, I don't think we're going to have to wait very long to find films where he is trying to create a sense of eroticism in the audience, which is different than almost all of Schrader's sexual obsession, which is not interested in like charging you up, getting your juices flowing.
It's much more about like the experience of the sexual obsessed from an outside perspective. I think.
Yeah.
I'd like to do some more formal analysis, like dig into the ways that.
I mean, the man is so interested in blocking and editing and.
Yeah. But specifically, like trying to locate political or socio-historical message in the form.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's great.
I mean, a challenge to set out for ourselves. And then this is just for me, maybe, but I am interested to know if the woman from the Girlfriend Experience ever did anything before that, because I wasn't familiar. She's like got a very compelling screen presence, but I don't think she had any acting work before or after that. Not familiar.
Right. Of course. Yeah. I think she was in some videos that a friend of mine, he's still in middle school. He told me about them.
You have friends in middle school? I mean, I guess you do some teaching.
He just stuck around. Yeah.
My understanding, she's a Twitch streamer now.
I actually didn't know that, but that does not surprise me. She's like a very successful
Twitch streamer who I think she like makes salsa on Twitch or whatever, and like plays League of Legends. So.
I've always wanted to eat gray salsa. Actually, you and I ate some gray salsa together.
We did have some gray salsa. It was quite good.
It was quite
it's a
good.
Stage name too.
Yeah. Okay. I don't
her
know
real name is Grace Tomatillo. Whenever we get her on the show, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, look, the guy's films are hot. And here's the confusing thing: his films are also quite cool. I mean, he's a guy who is trying to make stylish film, and he's trying to make like visually cool film, cool colors, but also trying to capture the feeling of like, I think this person is cool, and I wonder about that instinct and that desire. And of course, part of this stylistic evolution in my mind, we're going to find out if this is true, is that basically everything gets colder, faster, more based on efficiency. And I wonder, is he a guy who still thinks about like transcendental style in film, for example? I mean, I think he's kind of at the opposite end of the spectrum and much closer to a Clint in that I think of his films and being interested in like a language of film that translates as quickly as possible what he wants a scene to do. And yet he remade a Tarkovsky film. He did.
So is he within or without the Tarkovsky ring from Schrader's famous great question. Diagram?
Yep.
Schrader also talks about him, and I think sometimes is angry with him for, was it Dying of the Light that he offered
recut.
To edit it?
I don't think it was Dying of the Light. Let's just look it up because I want to get this right.
Was it wasn't Canyons.
It might have been the Canyons. Yeah, it was the Canyons.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. All right. So say it again. You want to just tell people?
No, I mean,
okay.
That's fine. Yeah, he comes up. I think Schrader is very aware of him as a peer, and also Soderbergh has got like a Eastwood work ethic, maybe director plus. And we got our work cut out for us because you said that you wanted to go through those lists he makes of everything he watches and reads in a day or in a year, and we're going to do that at the same time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So we're going to take a little break to get prepped for this. So we don't have a launch date yet. It'll be 2025.
Yeah, it'll be early 2025. Very early.
Yes. So before June 1st. No, it'll be early 2025. Although we will be back for Juror number 2 in O Canada.
Yep.
As soon as Ian can see those in a real form.
Yeah. Juror number 2 seems like, at this point, safe bet that it's just going to be VOD.
Yeah.
And O Canada, I think, is going to be maybe a week delay, it looks like, or 2 weeks for us to get the episode out, maybe. So hopefully not too enough for people to be able to get out and see it.
Yes. But the Patreon, don't stop. That'll still be every other week. Got plenty of ideas cooking up for that. We also got some cool stuff in the hopper that we're trying to make happen. So, you may be simply surprised to find a new episode in your feed at some point.
Yep.
And then another change.
Big change.
New announcement. When we come back with Steven Soderbergh, the show will be bi-weekly, every other week. The level of research and context that we like to provide that makes us feel like the episode is ready is simply more than we can keep up with on a weekly basis while having real jobs and staying as sane as we get.
Yeah, I know this scares people who love podcasts because it sounds sometimes like, oh, they're losing steam or losing interest. At least speaking for myself, and I think I'm speaking for both of us, this is to me attaining the level that I have sometimes achieved and have always wanted to achieve for the episodes, but now I want to do it without also sacrificing my relationships or commitment to sustainable farming or something else.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that we can do as well as we've ever done or better, and also give you guys some time to, maybe you don't want to watch a Soderbergh film every week. I thought it might give our listeners some time to actually keep up with us.
I think that's admirable. I mean, to me, it seems like either we keep the schedule and change what the show is, or we keep what the show is and change the schedule. And I think the latter is preferable to me. That
was our thought process. That's exactly right.
But the Patreon is going to keep going every other week. No change there. So if you want weekly Pod Casty For Me episodes, first of all, contact a mental health professional. And second, you can go to patreon.com/podcastingforme and subscribe, and then you'll have some new shit or other from us every week in your ears. So yeah, the Patreon will keep going apace, and the show will come back. I mean, I'm going to say it right now. Fully twice as good.
Okay. Great.
Every episode, twice as good.
Yep.
And any other announcements that we've got?
Every episode, I'm going to eat one full cocktail glass of shrimp during the episode while we record.
Oh, wow. People love that.
Yeah.
They love that sound.
Yeah.
You should get like the sugar glass from old movies so you can bite the glass too.
Oh,
eat the glass.
Yes. Of course, that breakaway glass.
Can you eat the ice, the shrimp cocktail ice? Like, is that bad to eat?
Well, I think you definitely, if you can eat the shrimp, you should be able to eat the ice.
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
I guess you're right. What about oyster ice?
But to be clear, I was pretending that I'm going to be Rusty Ryan from the Oceans films, who famously was eating an entire thing in every scene.
Well, yeah, but I think of him as primarily eating a hamburger. I don't know.
Weird of you.
Ian's going to shave his head.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm going to become Chinese.
Oh.
So remember to subscribe, rate us, write a review. It helps us on the algorithm. If you like the show, tell a friend, tell your dad, email a link to david_zaslav@discovery.com. I think that might be a real email address. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Pod Casty For Me. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you're interested in co-hosting a two-person Steven Soderbergh podcast, you can email us at podcastingforme@gmail.com. Thank you to Jeremy Allison for our artwork. We've got some new artwork coming up soon for Sody. That's going to be fun.
Yep.
Oh, the show's going to be called Casty For Me also.
Yep.
I pushed for Soderbergh me, but I think everybody who heard that said no. So,
I think they mostly said what?
Say it again? Yeah. Which you don't want that.
Yeah.
So we will. We'll see you soon to talk about some of those other movies, but more broadly, we'll see you in 2025.
Bye.